So there's a lot of videos being put out about this Lil Durk situation. Yesterday there was a motion that was filed by his defense. Defense is playing chess right now. A lot of people are saying like Lil Durk is about to come home because they filed a motion to dismiss and the public hasn't seen any of the information or the evidence that the defense is looking for. So automatically a lot of people feel like the feds just put this case together and somehow Durk is going to be released from bars scot-free. The charges will be dropped. But then you have another side of this story. Although the defense is trying to get the feds to show their hand, prove that they have the evidence that they have, this is only a defensive strategy. And with all of that being said, I'm going to go over a lot of the different videos so me and the Ruler Gang can try to put together what the hell is going on with this Lil Durk case. Another day, another rapper in the news. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe. We know that they're attempting to say that Lil Durk not only paid for the hit on Quando Rondo or his cousin who ended up being the one who ended up getting hit, but they also said that Lil Durk orchestrated this as well as he actually put fear into the hearts of those in Chicago who failed to retaliate for the passing of King Von. But this is how we got here.
The 32-year-old's arrest comes as 5 other people in Chicago were arrested in connection with the investigation. According to the complaint, Banks and his co-conspirators allegedly worked together to, quote, track, stalk, and attempt to murder a target at a Los Angeles gas station, firing at least 18 rounds into the person's vehicle, striking and killing a passenger in the car. Banks made his first court appearance this afternoon in Miami. Banks' lawyer asked for privacy after leaving court, telling ABC, quote, "We will not be commenting at this time."
Now, with that being said, again, like I said, there was a motion that was filed. A lot of people was talking about it. And we're going to go over all of the videos that I feel give the most information about what's going on and what's actually being said. Now, one of those videos that I first seen was Poetic Flacco's video. And in Poetic Flacco's video, he kind of broke down what was said in the initial indictment and then what's being said in the motion that was released yesterday.
After the murder of Davon Bennett, which is DB, King Von, defendant Banks Durk made it clear in coded language that he would pay a bounty or monetary reward and or make payment to anyone who took part in killing Quando Rondo's cousin for his role in Davon Bennett's murder. But here's the thing, okay? Bounty or monetary reward and or payment to anyone who took part in killing TB. What does that mean? That's the feds leaving it open-ended because they don't even know the answer to their question. Or even with this instance right here, when they use language like at the direction of. So in the indictment, and it would say, after learning of TB's location, at the direction of Lil Durk, defendants Wilson Jones, Lindsay in Houston, and co-conspirator 2 traveled from Chicago, Illinois to Los Angeles, California for the purpose of murdering TB. As alleged in counts 1 through 3 on August 19, 2022, at the direction of Lil Durk, defendants used 2 vehicles to track, stalk, and attempt to kill TB by gunfire. With respects to count 1, conspiracy to commit murder for hire, the indictment alleges at the direction of Lil Durk, defendant Grant will procure cars, ski masks, and firearms that will be used by co-conspirators to find, track, and kill TB.
And the dangers of that is the way that they put such a broad wording on that. Lil Durk could have bought somebody a car. He could have bought somebody an outfit, a chain, even something as small as a dinner. Those things that I just mentioned could actually be used against Durk as monetary payment for whatever they are claiming that Lil Durk did. Now, with that being said, Drew Findling is not playing with the United States government. He actually filed a motion, and he's asking for them to provide this information. Where did they get it from? What did Lil Durk initially say or apparently or allegedly say that he actually offered payment to the other individuals on this case?
Drew Findling writes in the motion to dismiss, this indictment is impermissibly vague. It leaves the defense to guess as to the government's theory of guilt, and it leaves the government free to change that theory as his cooperators' stories morph over time to meet the demands of a conviction. Because the indictment omits the factual particulars necessary to give Mr. Banks notice of the charges against him and to permit him to prepare his defense at trial, it fails to satisfy, they listed the actual law, and the Fifth and Sixth Amendment. Dismissal is warranted. As an alternative to dismissal, this motion seeks a bill of particulars.
So according to AI on Google, in a criminal case, a bill of particulars is a written statement from the prosecutor detailing the facts and specific allegations the government will rely on to provide the charges against the defendants. The discovery tool is requested by the defense to clarify the vague initial charging documents like an indictment and ensure the defendant understands the exact nature of the accusations, enabling them to adequately prepare a defense and avoid a surprise at trial. And that's exactly what I feel like is going on. I feel like that the prosecutors are trying to withhold all the information, regardless if it's strong or weak, from Durk and his defense team up until the last minute so they don't have as much time to prepare for this particular trial. Now, what the prosecution is going to argue is that Lil Durk actually is somebody who, if he finds out the information that, this conversation was had on this date, even without providing a name, they're going to say that Lil Durk will know who he had these conversations with and then try to apply pressure on that individual to not actually take the stand and testify against him. What they're going to say is Lil Durk is going to try to tamper with witnesses or threaten other individuals to scare them into not testifying against them, because they're trying to paint it as if Durk is this big-time gangster who is feared by people who are around him as well as those who oppose him in the OTF brand.
Counts 1 and 2 allege that Lil Durk conspired to and participated in murder for hire, in other words, a murder as consideration for the receipt of and consideration for the promise and agreement to pay anything of pecuniary value, or what the government calls a bounty. Defining anything of pecuniary value to include anything of value in the form of money, a negotiable instrument, a commercial interest, or anything else the primary significance of which is an economic advantage.
Now, again, the danger in that as well is some of these individuals actually worked for OTF. Like they were doing things, day-to-day managers. Just doing small things, whatever Durk might have been paying them for. Durk could have been paying some of these dudes just to be around, just to put them on the payroll because, let's keep it real. These were his friends. So we've known that Durk has had people around him who he, helped out financially through a lot of different situations, even giving them verses, features and things like that where there was no payment exchange. Hey, you the homie, I'm going to just give you a verse. Well, the government is going to try to say that Durk was giving these individuals verses or giving these individuals, putting them on a payroll because he was allegedly paying them for the work that they was putting in the streets for him or on behalf of OTF. And see, that's where this thing gets dangerous. And I don't know if the feds is going to be able to use this or not, but if they do, one can only assume that the defense is going to have an uphill battle trying to prove that these individuals just worked for Durk and Durk was just being a good friend and not paying them for the hits that they're claiming that Durk was responsible for in the streets of not only Chicago, but also what took place out in Los Angeles. Now, Drew Findling, like I said, he countered all of this stuff in his motion. And he actually brings up some of the things that I actually even had issue with what the feds were saying about Lil Durk and some of the things that they may try to use in the future as evidence.
A similar deficiency plagues the "at the direction of" language that affects every count in the indictment. While the indictment alleges that the co-conspirators carried out various acts at the direction of Mr. Banks, flying to Los Angeles, tracking, stalking, and attempting to kill TB by gunfire, and procuring the firearms equipment used to do so, it fails to give any specifics. When, where, and how, and to whom did Lil Durk give these alleged directions? To ensure the basic fairness of this trial, the defense is entitled to know. Given the vagueness of the indictment's bounty and at the direction of allegations, if the indictment is permitted to stand, a bill of particulars is warranted. Obviously, we just talked about that. Lil Durk requests a bill of particulars that reflects the theory upon which the grand jury rested its charging directions, and that gives Mr. Banks fair notice of the allegations against him. Specifically, we request the following information. The language that Mr. Banks allegedly used to convey his offer of a percentage bounty in exchange for the murder of TB, the nature of the item that Lil Durk is alleged to have offered and or delivered in exchange for the murder, the date, time, audience, and circumstances of the alleged bounty offer, the language used, date, time, audience, and circumstances related to at the direction of allegation in the indictment. The request is made under federal rule.
Now I gotta give it to Drew Findling. I mean, these are the things that you want your lawyer doing. This, in this, especially in this case, because we're talking about a life sentence. Like, we never getting out, actually. And then at the same time, the things that Drew Findling is doing for Lil Durk possibly can help some of the other individuals in this case who necessarily may not have had anything to do with it. Maybe they did, I don't know. But at the end of the day, though, these are great moves and great questions being presented by his lawyer, by his defense attorney. And we'll have to see what comes out of this. Like I'm telling you, he's forcing the government's hand early because the trial starts in January. So he's forcing the government's hand early to try to build a defense for Lil Durk. We need all of the information. We want if y'all got text messages, recorded conversations, whatever y'all have, we need that information so we can properly prepare a defense for this man because he's facing life. Now, with that being said, Flacco would go on to actually expose the second part of this motion. There's another motion, and this motion is dealing directly with the United States Attorney.
The Attorney General appointed Bilal as interim U.S. Attorney, effective April 2nd, 2025, following the resignation of Martin Estrada on January 17th, 2025. Now, under 28 U.S.C. 546, an interim U.S. attorney appointed by the Attorney General may serve no later than 120 days after appointment. That's because the 120 days is used for them to find a permanent replacement, right? But Essayli's 120-day term began April 2nd, 2025, and expired July 30th, 2025. Public records indicated that the judges of the district declined to make an appointment under 546D, but no order or announcement was made to extend Bilal's term. Now, here's where Bilal begins to do something tricky, unethical, damn near illegal, and damn near unconstitutional. So, despite the expiration of his 120-day limit on July 30th, Essayli continued to serve through a series of maneuvers initiated on July 29th, 2025, including his appointment as a special attorney and then as a first assistant, followed by a purported resignation. So this dude resigned and then redesignated himself as acting U.S. attorney under the Federal Vacancy Reform Act. The appointment clause requires that the president nominates and, with the advice and consent of the Senate, appoint all officers of the United States, including U.S. attorneys. Essayli, who was a private citizen and political ally, was appointed by the Attorney General without the Senate confirmation, which is not permitted unless he takes power as the U.S. attorney under the Federal Vacancies Reform Act. And what that means is this. Essayli does not meet the criteria under the Federal Vacancies Reform Act to serve as an acting U.S. attorney. He was neither an already in place first assistant, a Senate confirmed officer in another role, nor an already in place senior official in a U.S. attorney's office, making his action as an acting officer invalid.
The question that I have, the question that a lot of people probably has is, how did Findling get this information? In this era of government that we live in, I believe that somebody in the government blew the whistle on this particular situation, or somebody close to the U.S. Attorney's Office in California actually gave this information to Findling. I mean, this is something that we wouldn't just like stumble across. Maybe there's a private investigator who they have on payroll. I don't know, but Durk's money is definitely working for him in this particular situation. Now, am I totally convinced that this is going to get Durk off the hook yet? No, and for good reason, because by the time I woke up today, because I watched that video last night, by the time I woke up today, there were other videos that were being posted and other people were giving their opinions about what was being said, as well as the government would eventually bring up some more interesting information about things Lil Durk has been involved in prior to him getting arrested, as well as since he's been incarcerated.
The government filing a motion seeking an anonymous jury. Now, all of the defendants have pled not guilty. They're on trial for January 20th. The government's saying that this trial should happen with an anonymous jury where we keep the names, the phone numbers, and the addresses of the jury confidential. No one knows, not even the defense lawyers. What the government says is, look, Judge, we've got all this evidence that shows that OTF is a violent criminal gang. That's why we need this anonymous jury. What's the evidence? Well, all of what could be the good evidence is redacted. We can't actually see. They say they have witnesses who've said things, recordings that log things, but all of it is redacted, so we don't actually know. Kind of the crappy evidence is what they put into the public record that's not redacted. Things like people called a judge or people called the prosecutor and said, man, if y'all don't let Durk go, we gonna burn this to the ground. Who are these people? Do they have an affiliation with Durk? No, these are anonymous calls that were just made into government phone lines. Now, there's stuff about, hey, people have been threatened, people have been called a snitch, but again, all this stuff is just from the anonymous part. They're not actually putting the names of the witnesses and what was said and when. All of that part has been redacted and the public can't see it. Some of the arguments they do make that have some merit is that while Durk was in custody, he was found with contraband, an Apple Watch, and a cellular phone. This is after judges warned him not to have that. Look, something like that is not going to be enough to get a judge to go and give the anonymous jury instruction. But if there are witnesses implicating the defendants in serious violent crimes, you might have something. The other things where the government is saying, hey, this guy's on Instagram, he's on academics interviews saying, I hate all rats, he's doing this, he's doing that, his lyrics say this, his lyrics say that. I don't think any of that's going to sway the judge. What's going to get the judge to keep jurors anonymous is whatever is in those redactions, and if it's compelling and if it shows that as a bottom line, the government's case is very strong, these witnesses have firsthand knowledge of incriminating conduct, then you might have a chance where the judge is going to say, hey, there's serious crimes at issue here, there's serious evidence, and there's a serious threat that jurors would be intimidated. We'll see what the judge decides. I think the decision gives you a little bit of a glimpse into how strong the case is.
Now, with that being said, there was a video published by Byron Blake, and he addressed some of the things that Trap Lord Ross said. I'm not even going to play Trap Lord Ross's videos. Durk possibly having, conversations about what should happen to O Block members if they don't slide for Vaughn, as well as him saying that Didi is telling. All of that was addressed by Byron Blake in this clip that I'm about to play now.
According to these blogs and this document that you see on your screen, the feds are alleging that Durk ordered hits on O Block members for failing to retaliate for King Vine. This is where the whole entire situation gets tricky. They are already twisting up narratives. As y'all just saw, they tried to twist the DD paperwork into his lawyer is blaming everything on Durk, when his lawyer is literally saying the government keeps bringing in evidence against Durk, and if we gonna do that, then I just want my client to have a separate trial. He never said Durk is the one that did this or Durk did that. He's just saying they blaming everything on Durk. All of this information that they introducing is directed at Durk. And now they are releasing information saying that he was trying to get O Block members hit, specifically Munna Duke. Now, there are some people who feel like the whole King Vine retaliation thing is an excuse, and Durk just wanted Duke out of here for messing with his brother's baby mama. People saying Duke a snake. Some people saying the girl a snake. Y'all got to keep in mind that these two probably had a relationship before her and D-Thing started messing around. And, it go like that in the hood sometimes. Anyway, this is another chess strategy by the feds. They see that Durk is challenging them to produce specific information. What they are doing is, one, they got a prosecution witness listed here. This prosecution witness is expected to testify that he expected to receive payment from Durk for these alleged hits. What this does is it doesn't confirm that he paid for Quando Rondo to be hit, but it would offer evidence that it's his MO to pay people for hits. So even though they may not be able to bring in the exact language that he used, we have somebody here who is going to testify that it's routine for him to order hits and pay for hits. I specifically believe that they included this information about O Block members because they are trying to stir the pot. Over the last few months, there's been a lot of questions about Vine being backdoored by Durk and all of that campaign that was going on. And they are fueling that fire because that entices O Block members who may have been loyal to Vine but have no loyalty to Durk, and seeing they like, hold on, they did what? That may influence them to come forward with information. You never know. One of those guys in the O Block 5, if not all 5 of them, may say, hey, you know what? We put in this work and dude did that to Duke. And that could inspire them to come forward and talk about other situations that they may have been involved in or that they just may have knowledge of.
And I think that Byron Blake is making a great point. Not only do I believe that they're deliberately putting this out there to try to get people to flip, but also believe that they're just throwing anything at the wall so that the judge will not throw out this case. But as far as the accusations about him putting hits on O Block, I mean, it's so far-fetched. I just don't even understand it. And for them to actually try to say, and other bloggers are running with this, that he put a hit out on Mana Duke over his brother's baby mama is just insane. Like, if that's the guy that people are saying free, then keep him. If he's putting hits out on other men for sleeping with another man's woman, as well as think about the timing of when Mana Duke actually got hit. You feel what I'm saying? Like, who did it? Are they going to get paid now? Durk is in jail. Durk is locked up. So again, people are just putting things out there, and well, not people, the feds are just putting stuff out there and trying to dirty up the waters. That way they can keep Durk locked up while they try to put together this case. I'm telling y'all, I do not believe that this case is strong against Durk. It's not that strong, and it's not as strong as it looks. Now, if you ask me, my summary of everything that's come out, all of the paperwork that we heard, read, all of the things that bloggers are saying, all of the reports that's been put out there by the United States government, it's leading me to believe that no, Lil Durk's case is not about to be thrown out. The U.S. attorney on this particular case may have to be removed, but the fact remains that in order for them to get some indictment, they possibly had to show the grand jury some type of evidence, some type of proof that they had this evidence against Lil Durk and the O Block or the OTF individuals. I'm sorry. But with that being said, that doesn't mean that that evidence is going to actually convict Lil Durk and the rest of the guys that's on trial for this particular case. What will happen out of this, though, is I do believe that the judge will side with the defense and force the prosecution to release the information that they're asking for so that the defense can properly prepare for the trial that's coming in the next few months. With that being said, a lot of bloggers ran with a lot of different things. You know, they painted Diddy as somebody that's thrown Lil Durk under the bus, which that's not what's happening. He's just trying to separate his case, which a lot of people would say that that's a smart move. He should separate his case so that way he has a better chance to fight. But with that being said, though, man, we're going to see how this judge ends up ruling and how fast the government will act on the motion to remove the U.S. attorney from this particular case. But get in the comment section, man. Do y'all feel like the United States government is just throwing a whole bunch of stuff at Durk, hoping that they're going to get a conviction. To me, it makes me feel like the case is weak because they're coming up with things about contraband being found in this. This isn't a bond hearing. So regardless if he got found with an Apple Watch where he can call home or whatever, I really don't understand why that's in the rebuttal to what the defense attorney said in their motion. But get in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think about this. Y'all already know what it is, man. Ruler gang.